So, how did I get on the ELO spaceship tour? It's a roundabout way, but really I was there to learn about professional modern day music biz merchandising techniques, and it was a joint venture that potentially I was going to do with Lawrence Myers, the manager of Sailor, who I'd obviously in '78 got to know quite well, tour managing his band on a couple of tours. And Lawrence said he saw the potential for making money from merchandising bands. And I knew, having worked with Harvey Goldsmith quite a bit now, that he was involved with a company called Brockham International over in New York. And in actual fact it was Harvey, Norman Perry, who was in '76 Harvey's production manager, who I got to know on the Who Put the Boot In concerts. It was Harvey, Norman and a New Yorker called Peter Lubin, who owned the company and ran it out of an office in Manhattan. So I asked Harvey if I could have an introduction to Peter, and subsequently on a trip over to America, specifically to try and get some insight into the merchandising techniques, walked into Brockham's office, and Peter introduced me to his second in command, Andrew Weinrich, and they said, well, best way to find out is to come on the road with us. So they invited me on the road, and I spent about 10 days, 2 weeks on the road with Andrew, a guy who would become a long-term, lifelong friend, Brayton Fogarty, another lifelong friend, and two girls and two Puerto Ricans out of Manhattan. So there was 5 of us travelling around on the tour, selling unbelievable amounts of merchandise for ELO. The tour was a huge success. It was an arena tour. It took 2 days to set up this spaceship. I've got actually a fantastic interview that I will try and integrate into this with Joe Brown, the head of Tasco, who built the spaceship for ELO and also did all the sound and lights for it as well. But as far as the ELO tour was concerned, it was a fascinating episode for me, because I'd never seen so much merchandise sold and never seen so much cash. We were just having to dump off cash at banks every day, 10,000 at a time, because in America they had, probably still do have this law that anything over 10,000 cash deposited into a bank has to have a proper series of forms filled out for the IRS, and it's long, complicated, and not easy to do on the road as you're travelling from show to show. So we dumped off just under 10,000 at multiple banks sometimes after a really good show. And one particular episode I'll never forget is being part of this dumping off, and the bank asked us to wait a minute after while they were counting it, and a minute became 10 minutes and 10 minutes to half an hour, and before we knew it, 2 guys were walking into the bank introducing themselves as the FBI, and we were taken into rooms and asked why we were carrying so much cash around. They thought we would, I don't know, gangsters of some sort. Anyway, fortunately they believed us and we moved on to the next town. But fascinating time of it, with a great crew, and as I said, you should check out the video. It's the beginning of the show, and the show was a roaring success, and I made some great friends from it. I came back to England armed with all the information, and I decided not to get involved with Lawrence Myers in the merchandising over here in the UK, although and that was really for personality reasons, not with Lawrence but with his head accountant at the time, who I didn't feel I could have a particularly fruitful working relationship with, but that's the way it goes sometimes. What actually did occur, bizarrely, was Peter Lubin contacted me at a later date and asked if I would set up and run Brockham in Europe. Now, what an opportunity that was. I was probably be a millionaire now today if I accepted, but I was knee deep in tour managing and loving every minute of it, so I didn't really want to give that up. But I did introduce Peter to my brother Anthony, who at the time was working for Customs and Excise, and consequently knew all the rules and regulations about moving goods around Europe, which I thought would be very advantageous for a merchandising company who, up until then, over in Europe at least, had really been smuggling goods from one country to another in the back of the van, back of the truck, and not been doing the paperwork, crossing the T's and dotting the I's very well. So anyway, Peter flew over, I introduced him to Anthony, and Anthony went on to 15 to 20 year career in merchandising, running not only Brockham International, some of the biggest tours ever seen in Europe, but also picking up the rights to sell merchandise at the NEC in Birmingham and the London Docklands Arena when it opened. So, it's my little ELO story.